Hi, I'm Dr. Randy Brinson. I'm with the Christian Coalition of Alabama, and we're pleased to have Jonathan McConnell with us today. He is a candidate for U.S. Senate for the state of Alabama. Welcome, Jonathan. Good to see you.
Thanks, Dr. Brinson. Very good to see you as well.
Good to see you. Jonathan, this year is a really interesting election year. We have had, for the first time, serious challengers to incumbents here in the state of Alabama, particularly on the Republican Party side. And I know you're running against Senator Shelby, who's been a long-time sitting senator here in the state of Alabama. What was the thinking that you want to do? Why did you feel called to run the Senate this time?
Well, I think we all can agree that this country's not moving in the right direction. Whether it's small businesses being under attack, and now even as of late with the San Bernardino, California attacks, we're not safer. We're so in danger of leaving a legacy for our children that's worse off than what we had it for the first time in the history of this nation. And I think that, that's something that we need to address. And that's the reason I'm running, because I think that our country is not better off. It hasn't been better off for the last several years. And if you look at the last 36 years that Senator Shelby's been in office, it has not gotten better.
Well, the thing that's really interesting right now is that we've finally seen evangelicals, let's say for lack of a better term, wake up. I mean, it had always been previously that you just voted for the Republican incumbent, and now people are really talking about this. I know my friends at Eagle Forum, for example, have put together a town hall about white flag Congress. They're tired of people just surrendering on every issue when there's so much at stake on these issues. So talk about a few of the things that you've seen that possibly that you would like to see happen if you were fortunate enough to get the Republican nomination for Senate.
Well, I think that's a great point, is that Christians, have typically identified with the Republican Party, and we've rubber-stamped Republican nominees every single time. But the problem is that Republican nominees aren't exactly representing the Christians. So, let's look at Senator Shelby's voting for a second. He voted for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Breyer, Justice Kennedy. Any one of those three, Obamacare would have been overturned, Roe v. Wade would have been overturned, and then also we would still have traditional marriage. So I think that we need to not look, we can look at their voting record all day, but we need to look at content of character as well. Is this person a believer, or are they just saying, hey, I'm a Christian, we're checking that box?
Yeah, exactly, and that's been the problem with so many, for lack of a better term, voter guides or guides things. Many of these candidates know what vernacular to say,
Absolutely.
But they don't really talk the talk all the time. And particularly with Planned Parenthood. I know right now people are very frustrated with the Congress. They're talking about possibly funding Planned Parenthood in the new budget. There's a lot of pressure on Speaker Ryan now to do that. And so how do we nuance things like that, where we really make a stand and say, look, these are abominations that are happening, particularly with Planned Parenthood. How do you, if you were fortunate to be in the U.S. Senate, how do you decide how to best address that particular issue?
Well, I think it's leadership. We look at, no one wants to fund Planned Parenthood, or I'm sorry, Republicans don't want to fund Planned Parenthood, but yet we still end up doing it.
Right.
Because they're afraid of the president's veto.
Right.
Let the president veto it.
Right.
Vote on it.
Right.
And pass the bill. Defund Obamacare, and if the president vetoes it, that's fine, but at least you've done your duty to the people. The House, said, hey, let's win the House, and then we'll be able to repeal Obamacare, or we'll be able to do this and do that. Senate said the same thing. We gave them the Senate, and they still haven't done it. Mm-hmm. Put it at the feet of President Obama. Let him lose the moral authority by having to veto it, but right now we're giving them all a free pass.
Right. And the other area that I think people are very frustrated with is our foreign policy.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, you as a veteran, a Marine Corps veteran, who actually been to the Middle East, actually seen what's happening there, what do you think we need to do there differently than what maybe Republicans or Democrats are doing as far as foreign policy, and how do we change the direction of our country there?
Well, we don't have a foreign policy in this country. And, right now, what we're doing in the Middle East, there's no strategy. It makes no sense at all. I've been to the Middle East probably 6 or 8 times in the last year because of the business I started. I've been to the Middle East and Africa dozens of times in the last 6.5 years. The people I work with there are like, Jonathan, what are y'all doing there? What is your strategy? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. I consider myself a pretty smart guy, and I can't figure it out. I think that what we've got to do is we have to come up with a strategy and commit to it, and commit unabashedly to it. Sending 250 troops or 2,000 troops is not going to do it. Either we send troops, exactly as many as the Department of Defense needs to accomplish that mission, or we just send none at all. But the way to really move forward, I think, right now is to use our allies in the region to do something about it. The GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, consisting of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Qatar, Bahrain, those 6 countries have trillions of dollars in revenue as their GDP, and they have over 1 million soldiers, or armed forces comprise about 1 million people. Do you know how many troops they've committed to fighting ISIS? 0. Do you know how many Syrian refugees they brought in? 0. And so we're acting from 16,000 miles away, and we are getting involved in this fight, and yet the local, Arab nations there are doing nothing. And they actually, if they do that, if they take ownership of the problem, they take ownership of the outliers or the extremists in their society, then at that point you take away the one thing that emboldens them the most, which is a jihad. We take that element away from them, and you're like, hey, this is Arab versus Arab, and that is how you at least start with a strategy there.
Well, I think that goes back to the initial core thing is that we as Congress, too many times it seems like the people in Congress are looking at basically what helps not the American people, our Americanism, but what helps how they can get reelected and how they get more money and things like that, funneling money through their different PACs or things like that. I had another friend that was really very close to, and this is what's so sad. They said Democrats get elected to govern. Republicans are getting elected not to govern, but to win elections or move up on seniority. And that's all they care about. And so is that what you're seeing on the campaign trail? Are you seeing that kind of feeling about the voters and things like that too?
Oh, well, I mean, on the campaign trail, you look at when we go talk to people, most people are like, hey, you don't stand a chance. Shelby's got so much money, and then we actually present our case to them, and they're like, you're 100% right. I'm 100% behind you. It is absolutely amazing the energy that's out there. People that are frustrated with what's going on, but you're totally right. The reason you vote for Senator Shelby is seniority, and that's the problem. Is that we've got senators who stay up there, career politicians who stay up there for 30 or 40 years, and they keep getting all the seniority so they can bring more bacon home. But it's at the cost of the American people. It's not even at our cost. It's at our kids and our grandchildren's cost.
Right.
And the American people are ready to say, hey, enough's enough. Let's bring these guys home. Let's actually move and elect leaders who are going to do something about the horrible spending we have in this country.
Well, I think even if everybody does that, then we have a problem with what you're saying. So, for example, even on the congressional level, if you have people that are saying, oh, we're going to protect these sacred cows, but I want to cut everything else. Well, that doesn't make sense. All you're doing is shifting the money around. You don't really get to the problem. Even if there's things that are wasteful in our own district, we probably need to, that's only going to benefit a few people. It's not going to benefit all of us. So I think you're right about that. Share a little bit with your faith, a little bit with our voters, because I know they're very interested in that, and also your experience in the military, you're serving our country there. Tell us about it so we get a little understanding of that as well.
Well, thanks. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were high school sweethearts from Viger High School in Mobile, Alabama. And, I grew up in Spring Hill Baptist Church, which, laid a foundation for me as a believer. I accepted Christ in my heart at 7 years old. And you understand a little bit about what's happening. But and you understand that that's just a natural process you're supposed to do, but you don't really take hold of that, or I did not take hold of it until I was in high school. When I was a junior in high school, I went to Centrifuge, church camp, and that's when I finally realized that it's actually a daily walk with the Lord. And and accepting Christ in my heart, and rededicated. It's hard to say you rededicated your life, because if you dedicated your life to Christ, you dedicated it. It's a lifelong concept. But, at that point, I understand what it meant to actually have a daily walk with the Lord. And that, to me, one of my favorite sayings is St. Francis of Assisi saying of, hey, in all things that you do, proclaim the gospel, but when necessary, use words. And I think that's so important, that if you live a life that it's about, a constant conversation with God, and it's not through talk, but it's just through your actions on spreading the love of people that are in this hospital, that are, throughout this world, and just, in loving someone so much until they ask you why, and then you tell them about the love of Jesus Christ. And I think that's what's very important. I think that's what's missing in our society. I think that, if there are no perfect Christians out there, there's one perfect Christian. I am certainly not one of them, but I do think that, I think that's what we're missing is, just spreading the love of Christ to every single person. And that's what we're missing in this society. When I was in the Marines, I will say this, I never prayed more than I did on that first deployment. Every patrol, every time we're outside of the wire, praying for the safety of my Marines, safety of the mission, and then that we would bring us all home. I failed at that on my first deployment. I did not bring all of my Marines home. It was something that I struggled with for years. And having to, it was to a point where I had survivor's guilt, but also too that I was very frustrated with God and did not talk to God for years, and it was something that I struggled with. And God still blessed me through all that. He blessed me with a loving family, but also too the loving family of that Marine that really took me under their wing. And I still talk to them every couple of weeks, but they showed grace that I was not willing to accept because I was still blaming myself for him, not bringing him home. But also too, God blessed me with still graduating from law school, graduating early from law school with a company that was overwhelmingly successful. And I wasn't I didn't overtly hate everything or hate, but God blessed me despite me not coming home to Him. And I remember having one moment where I was miserable. I hated life, and I remember going into my office because I lived on the floor of my office. It was part of that just not liking me moment. And for 2 years I lived on the floor of my office actually. A lot of it's because I worked all the time and I just was like, hey, I don't deserve to have fun. I don't deserve to do this. But I lived on the floor of my office, and one day I was just like, I'm so miserable. This is not worth it. The anger inside of me had built up, and the survivor's guilt had built up. And I remember just being like, God, take this life from me. I don't want it anymore. And really opened up a dialogue with God again. And to me, it was like a 1,000 needles in my back had released. It was like all the muscles, the kidneys, that had just been so tight for so many years, released. And it was just like, it's going to be okay. I'm finally talking to God again and living the right way. And and it was amazing. And I tell everybody this, if your relationship with God's not right, then nothing else matters. Right. It was making tons of money. Was wildly successful when it comes to everybody looking at you on your face. But if your heart's not right, it doesn't matter. And that to me, it saved my life. It truly saved my life. Being able to love again, and I'd kept people from loving me, and I'd also stopped from loving other people because I was just so angry at that time.
Right. That's so true. Is that even I've seen the same thing. Exactly what you're saying. The way I think about that, though, Jonathan, is that God has a purpose for you down the road.
Yep.
He sees the whole
He does.
picture, and so He sometimes blesses you when you're not feel worthy of blessing.
Absolutely.
But think because He has a higher calling for you. Maybe this higher calling is the U.S. Senate.
Yep.
So we'll have to see. But it's been great talking to you. I think people want to hear your story. They want to hear more about you and stuff. So we're hoping that this will give an opportunity, at least to our viewers for Christian Coalition of Alabama, and also through give you even more visibility. And God bless you on your campaign. And like I said, we're doing this to give everybody opportunity to have their voice heard. So we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, Jonathan.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor, and I think that I wouldn't be in here if I didn't feel God's calling me to do it. But I think that this country is in trouble, and we need to make some fundamental changes in this country. And I'm happy to pursue God's call on that.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thanks again, Jonathan. It's good to see you. Okay.
Appreciate
Appreciate it. Thank you.